Hello, everybody. I would like to start with the context of what is happening, and I will subvert a bit the theme of the crisis. Because actually what is happening nowadays in Europe, it's not started last year, it started since the 90s. And there is plenty of similarities all over Europe. And very basically they are the destruction of the social state. That is something that Europe conquered after the Industrial Revolution. Because at those times when you stopped working, you stopped being active, you were just dying on the streets. So Europe somehow developed their constitutional laws in a very protective way for the social rights. Another thing is the privatization of the national resources, going from health, going from electricity, water, and depending on each country, those measures are being implemented in different ways. So this is part of the context to prepare it to talk about the crisis. Because since the 90s, they are trying to privatize the health system, they are trying to privatize the electricity, and it was really difficult to make that happen. So they started to try to make a liberalization of the markets, to try to overcome some of the politician movements to this goal, but it was not actually really possible. And now with the context of the crisis, that is opening all the doors for that to start to happen. So both in Greece and Portugal right now, they are being treated as an experiment, how far they can take this overcome. Basically, Greece and Italy are occupied. They have a president that is not really elected. And the perspectives of the next presidents, it's not very different. All the labor rights are being totally overtaken. Also the national resources of the countries. And for example, in Portugal, the electricity has just been privatized. It's already on the landscape to privatize the water as the next step. Pretty much as Naomi Klein speaking the shock doctrine, with all this crisis set up, things are happening really fast and in a very open way. And everybody is still shaking. They don't really know how to react to all these constant attacks, mostly to people that in the end are the ones who are suffering the most. Like I said before, this started in the 90s, but now with the crisis, we are very much on the beginning of this process. Right now, the banks in Portugal, for example, also in Greece, they are being supported. We got the money from the Troika. The banks are putting the money back on the market with no interest, and they are making very big profits. And people keep forgetting that, because at the same time it's the taxpayers paying all the debt, not the banks, as they should be responsible to it. And Dimitris will speak a bit more concretely about Greece, and then I will give some episodes of Portugal.
Right, hello from me as well. I will give you some briefly statistics and housing situation and what is being undertaken in my country. So, we have some, during at least the last 2.5 years, we can see the results. The statistics are breathtaking. We'll see it a bit more analytically later. We'll talk a bit about the movements during the last years, which had a significant role in also in the formation of the government. What's the procedure that's being taken, the role of the unions, the solidarity movements, and about this black coalition government, as we call it. So we'll see it a bit more detailed right now. Okay, if I wanted to, let's say, resume everything to and connect also to what Nuno said, and also listening to the comrades from UK, we can just say that Greece is only the beginning. That's the title I would put. We could see that there's a serious experiment right now that's occurring in Greece. It's the first. It was the first in the European Union. We had a new post-democratic neoliberal form of government. This was it is in the making. So, what's the daily menu? Continuous attacks, means of people's survivals. How do they do it? Politics of fear and shock. Also, mass media spectacles all the time. We can see they're helping a lot, and of course, performed by repression. And so, a bit words about how was the situation before the IMF comes. Sometimes people tend to believe that before the IMF, like 2.5 years ago, Greece was a paradise or something. No, that's not accurate. Okay, we had huge student movements, 2006 and 2007, against the private universities. They tried to change the constitution. We won. They took everything back. They didn't make the private universities, but every week, every Thursday, I still remember it. For 1.5 years, we were in the streets, 40, 50, 100,000 in the, if it was for the whole country. The unemployment rate was constant, like 10, 12% the whole time, even during the growth period that the GDP was increasing. I have to remind you that the GDP for the last 10 years has increased by 50% until 2008. But the salaries remained stable or increased like 3 to 5%. So you can see that the inequalities have started before to be implemented, and it was also in the procedure. Many scandals from the previous government that also made them, I'll say, get out from the government. Of course, we have the big thing that started the youth. The younger people started to realize what's going on. It was December 2008. I don't know, many of you probably have heard about Alexandros Grigoropoulos, that he was shot, killed directly by a cop in the center of Athens. We had like major protests and manifestations, and I will just remind some pictures. They are indicative. You can see there were, for about 1 month, there were fire and riots the whole day, burning cars, looting, and the streets were also full of people, and even students were attacking to police departments in every neighborhood all over the country. Also, this is a beautiful picture. I really like. This was the Christmas tree, and that time we said that Christmas is not coming this year, so because of that. So basically, it was more impressive. Like this, thousands of people, every day, big classes. Okay, we'll get back to that. Okay, October 2009, we have elections, we have new government, Social Democrats, 44%, George Papandreou. Okay, they were elected with, the motto was that money exists and we will take it from the rich and we will give them to the poor, but they did the opposite. So basically, that was the, let's say, the line that we went to the IMF. We entered the IMF on 6th of May. 5th of May, the day before, there was one of the hugest protests that I've ever taken part to. We're talking about almost 1 million people in the streets taking over. We're talking about riots and quite massive. I mean, people, you could see grandmas trying to beat the police. You could see small children just, pointing their fingers. Like, we're talking about 12 years old. But we had a really weird incident, I don't know how to say that. 3 people during this thing were killed. How they were killed? They were trapped in a bank, as you see in the picture, and some people just throw gas bombs, and those guys were 3 people. The one girl was pregnant, were killed because of the fires. You can also see the picture from demonstration, about 1,000 of people, and the classes, people with no masks, no nothing, just normal people going there. So why am I referring to that? Because this was a point that the movement went into the corner. The left was in the corner, the anarchist movement was in the corner, and it was blamed for the murder of those 3 people. So you understand that for almost 1 year, everything was frozen. We couldn't, even if we were calling for a strike or something, people wouldn't just follow because they would say that we will have this and this again. Okay. So, a few words about the situation right now. It's not good. You can see some numbers. We have 27% real unemployment. So I made a note that if you are unemployed even for 1 hour per month, you're not officially unemployed. We have 52% unemployment for young people up to 25 years old, while the rest are working for 300 euros if they find a job in the black labor market. Just short notice that with 110% increase in 2 years, 1/3 of 34% actually of the population under poverty, according to official European statistics. We have a country of about 10.5 million people. 5,000 workers lose their jobs every day. We have increasing numbers of homeless people. And the new thing in this is that the homeless people is not just, in every city there's a capital, especially there's a percentage that, they are homeless, they lost everything. But we're talking about middle class people that until now they have, their car, an average family, a good house or something. They lost everything. The debt. We are doing all this thing to reduce the debt. We entered the IMF 120%. We are 160%, still rising. And of course, all those policies wouldn't be easy to implement them without the police violence and the use of excessive force. So, one short notice again, just some indicative pictures. This was, we have also some Spanish comrades here from 59. This was the Los Indignados in Athens. And it was summer 2011. That was the first time actually that people started going out massively again. Now you can see those 2 pictures. This is, we're talking about 1 million people in the square outside the parliament. In the end, around June, 17th of June, they managed to destroy everything, throwing in one day around 1,500 tear gases. So basically it was like a war zone on that day. But this thing left us something that people could actually go out again in the streets and start fighting. One big event, 19 and 20 of October 2011. We had the 48-hour general strike. Massive, again. We had, the first day was, the people were again like more than 500,000 people. Basically, if you add both days together, you could see it's more than 1 million. People were just going out again. They found their courage. And of course, it's not only that, it's also that they started feeling that those austerity measures are actually affecting their standard of living, and now they're screwed. Okay, in this general strike, there was a new phenomenon. If you see the picture on the right, there was a confrontation between the Stalinist party and the anarchists. So basically, the Stalinists attacked as provocators to the activists, people that were there. They started beating each other, Molotov bombs, petrol bombs. So the police was really happy about that. About 30 people from each side went to the hospital. I had a really good friend of mine. I was together with him in the hospital. It was really, but he was an activist, and we were in the same hospital with all the Stalinists. That was the weird part. Another thing, 28th of October 2011, it's the anniversary for the big no that they said there's a march, military march, and the schools go and so on. They blocked the entrance, people went out, you can see they're not holding anything, and they attacked the president of the state. We have a president and prime minister, and this thing started changing everything. We have continuous attacks in PMs, in MPs, I'm sorry, members of the parliament, everywhere. They go for a coffee, and 200 people are attacking them with yogurt, coffees, and everything. Okay, and we will go to one very significant, very important general strike. This was 12th of February 2012, so it's quite recent. Again, massive, very dynamic. It was one of the protests that the police used more than excessive force. We were talking about many people, many comrades of mine, again in the hospital. But I really liked the slogan I saw, and people were holding that with a 400 euro salary, you don't survive, you rebel. That's exactly what happened in this general strike. We had buildings on fire because the police was firing back. People were really angry. The role of the mass media, of course, I cannot forget that they were asking, especially from the left parties that are in the parliament, do you condemn, like the comments from UK said before, do you condemn violence, do you condemn violence? I mean, if I would like to answer, the way we were answering is that, according to us, to our philosophy, violence is what the state does right now. Poverty is violence, is worse violence than destroying, let's say, the glass in the store or something. Okay, this just continuity. This keeps on. It goes. We can put it in the frame of the struggle of the people, the workers, and the students, of course. Okay, the blackmail now from the government. If we don't sign the agreements, the new bailout, the new memorandum, chaos prevails. If we don't sign, we're going back to the old currency. If we don't sign this memorandum, then nothing will be in the supermarket the next day. They were saying the whole time that we won't have milk, as if, you know, the cows will stop producing milk if anyway, yeah, but basically, more or less, it was like a big defeat for them. They had a majority in the parliament of 250 MPs, and after the voting, there were 60 of them didn't vote. Rated voting, of course, so everyone would know who voted for what. Okay, I also have, yeah. Here you can see when we talk about, once we were people just fall down and just kicking in the face from the policemen, but also there was the answer from the people. You could see that they were quite well equipped also. And this is like indicative pictures also from this demonstration. Okay, we had a suicide with gun of a pensioner, 77 years old, 3 weeks ago. He shot himself in the main square of Athens, in the Syntagma Square outside the parliament. He left a note that Greece is under occupation and it's a political suicide. This guy used to be a pharmacist, and he decided to do that to complain because he cannot live anymore with his pension, already cut by 50%. He was living his whole life. He was an activist, all-time member of his union, all the time going down the streets. So this guy was desperate. After this, we had demonstration after his funeral, where 2 journalists, this guy on the left is the president of the union of the photojournalists, hit on the head after the surgery. And this one is a journalist of a very big channel, and she was also hit on the head and went for a surgery. Okay, that's with the pictures. One big question all the time, what should we do? Okay, sometimes it's more like a question than an answer, but if we, according to also to what Nuno said, it's a capitalistic crisis, it's a bank crisis, it's systemic crisis. I think we should just discuss how, not if the rich are going to pay, but how are we going to make the rich pay for their crisis. And of course, at the same time, we need to be aware that we have to construct the alternative basis for the next day. Okay, how to do that? I mean, I think that one country itself, I mean, Greece itself, Portugal herself, I mean, they cannot do many things. We have to be more in a coordination, all the countries that are facing those problems, and also countries that are not still facing those kind of problems. For now, I'm in Denmark. I mean, I can see that the crisis will not take too long to be spread there also. Okay, I'm really sorry for that. Again, one definite thing about Greece that this regime has to fall. We have elections, 6th of May. It's really critical elections. Some of you might, wonder, will they change anything? Well, yeah, I'm not, a big fan, but I think it could change. It could change a lot, and we could just start send a message inside and outside the European Union. Yeah, I just want to add that this government was formed in a non-democratic way, this black coalition government. We had, as a prime minister, a banker. This guy, Lucas Papademos, was the ex-vice president of the European Central Bank. So basically, I don't know, and he said he negotiated really strong. I don't know anyone that would work in a company and will go to his boss and negotiate that hard. I'm saying that from now on, and also Nuno will hear about Portugal, some more specific stuff. We have to be we must have a really strong stomach from now on, and I think we're gonna face lots of difficulties and traps, and we have to be smart enough and to avoid, and in the end, I think, I'm optimistic, we can do it. That's what I think, and then...
About Portugal, I didn't prepare so many visual stuff, but basically it's happening very much what is happening in Greece right now. The European Union, with the European Bank and the FMI got inside Portugal around 8 months ago, much sooner, not so long time ago as in Greece. But actually the process, it's being very, very fast, even faster than what happened in Greece, because there is almost no resistance in Portugal about what is happening. So our electricity, as I said before, it was immediately privatized. It got to an extreme that they made an advertisement package that if you buy a special kind of electricity, you'll get 10% discount in the main supermarket chain of Portugal, which is the perfect example how the liberalization of market, it's getting so distorted. Also in the metro stations in Lisbon, they got names of private companies. So even our public space, our cultural identity, it's being privatized somehow, with no resistance whatsoever of the majority of the population. This week, for example, it happened something that I find really, really scary, is that we have a constitutional court that theoretically regulates, it's supposed to regulate the democracy. And it was proposed by the two main parties. They made the same list of people going to the constitutional court. And basically they are economists. And what they are doing, actually, they are preparing the terrain for the next setup of measures. That it will involve to be able to fire public workers, that it used to be, again, very well protected in our constitutional rights. They will be able to fire a huge amount of people that they were not supposed to. They will be able probably to privatize the water and to do a very big set of policies that used to be unconstitutional, not constitutional until the moment, I'm sorry. Our workers, they keep taking out all their rights. The liberalization of the workforce, it's totally overcome, totally installed in Portugal. So there is a lot of people starting to use food banks because they cannot afford anymore to buy their own food for their family. But still is missing a very a matching point between, how can I say, there's a conscience of a social class. People are still very in shock. They are very not, they are not fighting for one cause, like for example it's happening in Greece right now. People are not yet actually on the streets. This year we only had 2 general strikes. One was well succeeded. The second one it was still mainly in Lisbon and in Oporto, and it's still missing. So some people what they are trying to do is to gather, to create an idea that they are not isolated, that the problem, it's a problem about Europe, that there are similarities with Greece, with the UK, with Ireland, with Spain. This is, yeah. I could be speaking about many examples, but it's very much the same. It's to privatize all the resources of the country and to reduce the labor rights to a zero, where the free market can work their way out. Of course, somehow it's also destructing itself, because if people cannot afford to boost the economy, the capitalism itself will not keep going, and so on. So it's a quite complex and antagonistic problem right now. And to be interesting to now, after this presentation, to generate more questions and to talk a bit about, and also it would be interesting to relate how Scandinavia, it's also facing the crisis, also with the housing market and with the labor rights liberalization. Yeah, it could be interesting to talk a bit about it.
We have 10 minutes or something like that for questions. So if anyone has a question, just put your hand up. Tarek.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's a question to Dimitris regarding the elections. A very impressive presentation, but I was very disappointed to hear you want to take part in the next elections. Did they ask you when they got the ex-vice president of the European Central Bank and they had him, forced him to accept IMF loans and forced budget cuts? How do you think that taking part in the elections will ever change anything if all the members of parliament pledge allegiance to the IMF and to the budget cuts just for their own good?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay, first of all, in the parliament we have 300 members. This government that has no legitimacy, that was not voted, had 250 people there, so it was powerful because there was a coalition of the 2 main parties. I'm saying, first of all, the IMF is not supported by the left parties. Okay, inside the parliament there are groups, and the 2 left parties, the 2 main parties, are quite opposed, and they're always, when there's general strike, they're in the streets. So what matters right now is to, after the elections, to make them as less powerful as possible. So our goal, let's say, would be less than 50% in the total voting and less than 151 parliament members. So they will not be able to take any measures, any austerity measures. And from that point, we will start. We cannot, even if we had a left government, to say we'll kick the IMF out and so on. Nothing will be able to happen if you don't have the movement. So if the question is, do you really believe that anything could be, happen because with a good result in the elections? I'm saying it would happen, it could, but with certain commitments, in the sense that movement must always be there. And I would be really happy to see another government, more, let's say, progressive, to kick the Troika out. And this movement has to always put pressure in the government, because power corrupts, and this is for sure. Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for the presentation. That was really good. So I wanted to ask also Dimitris the question. Sorry, Nuno. But it's basically about the 3 people that got killed. Did you ever find out who did it? That's my first question. And secondly, do you think it's possible that it was kind of orchestrated to make it look like it was the left and the anarchists who did it? And how has that affected everything? I know you said it was frozen for a little while, but...
Okay. They never found actually the person who did it, those who did it. Some organization, let's say from the extreme anarchists, they took responsibility for that, but they never appear again. So there's a huge speculation that probably it could have been organized by secret police, undercover police, in order to do this damage to the movement. I'm telling you that for 1 year we were calling for a strike, we were calling for anything, and we were gathered like 200 people there. So it really affected. After 1 million in the streets, there's a huge difference. There is a chance that this thing could have been organized, but I'm not sure. I cannot definitely answer you. But there are many, in every demonstration, we have undercover police competing there, and they are contributing, so they are actually helping. We're trying to isolate them. It's not that easy sometimes.
I have a question. Are the Greeks willing to pay a very high price to stay in the Eurozone, or we just get this idea from their politicians?
Okay, a huge discussion again. For us, for the people, doesn't matter if you're poor, if you have euro, if you have drachma, it's exactly the same thing. There's a higher percentage right now that would like to go back to the old currency, but imagine having a salary in a new currency, drachma, that would be less than 50% of its value, and all the debts in euros, so it would be a bit catastrophic right now for the workers. People are not willing to pay anymore to save the banks. We already given 120 billion euros to save them, and they are still have damages of about 50 billion. This thing cannot keep on. If you ask me if they are willing to do whatever it takes to stay in euro, this is the main point that the two main parties are actually saying in order to impose all the austerity measures. So I'm saying we should not, activists and leftists, we should not answer to their questions, but we should, because sometimes if you make a wrong question, you get a wrong answer. So I'm saying we should put the right questions and give our answers, having always in mind that what is in benefit for the society, what is for the benefit of the workers.
Hi, I have two questions, one for Dimitri and one for Nuno. One thing that I didn't hear you talk about, Dimitri, was the presence of growing fascist movement in Greece. And I just read an article that was comparing Greece with Weimar Germany, which is an experience that has a lot of lessons to offer us about the situation in which there's a kind of radicalization of the left and a kind of growing movement of kind of proletarian people and strikes and all these kinds of good things, but also at the same time, a kind of growing ultra-right, anti-immigrant, racist movement. And so, I'm wondering if you could talk about that, because I know that they've had like mini insurrections in Athens and like pogroms essentially. And maybe, I don't know if Portugal has a similar experience with fascism or anti-immigrant sort of sentiment emerging in this context. But I also just wanted to ask you about, it's obviously strange and sad that there's been no resistance in Portugal, or not significant resistance. And I think it's a lot like Ireland, right, had this kind of IMF occupation and nobody did anything. But was there an attempt to spread the 15M experiment, or to try to do what was happening in Spain at all there? Or, I mean, maybe you could talk about kind of what people have tried and what hasn't worked, or,
Yeah, there is, in this context in Portugal, there is happening two things. One is that both the government now in charge and the main opposition party, they are working together, because they already know that the measures are so unpopular that obviously the next party theoretically going to power, it's the opposition party. And so one of the main impositions of the Troika was that for these two parties to work together starting since they came in. And they are following it just perfectly. So Portugal, for example, and on contrary in Greece, which their president, before it being overthrown, he kind of released the bomb of the referendum. And a few days after he was being kicked out of the prime minister. In Portugal, that is not happening. They are following the Troika measures at 150%. They are even making more measures than what actually is in the memorandum, which is pretty amazing. Last week, a Brazilian journalist was talking about our prime minister, that is not alone doing all this, because actually all the Portuguese, the main Portuguese population, it's following it in a shameful way, with a shameful silence. But sooner or later, it will get too much and things will break apart, definitely. Nowadays, in the movements, there is two main left parties, still in the old traditions of fighting among themselves, the Communist Party in a very sectarian approach, and another more liberal left-wing party, but still very focused on maintaining their seats on the parliament. So they are too scared of facing the problem by its root, by exposing their actual problems. So they are trying to collect this kind of population that they are in the side. They don't decide yet if they vote on this party or on that party, so they are very carefully trying to collect more voters for them in a way that I find very wrong approach, because they are just feeding the old system. There is a few movements trying to start to do public assemblies, very much into the Spanish example, and their basic principle is that they are not connected to any kind of party, and they are trying to collect people to go to the street and to do examples of solidarity. In the example of the food banks, it's working very well. There is a lot of self-organized people creating food banks. They are going to restaurants, pick up the leftovers. They are going to supermarkets. It's getting really big now in Portugal. The media don't talk about it, of course, but the use of these food banks, it's growing very, very fast. Another example is that this Christmas, there were 15 schools who didn't closed because they knew that there were some families that they could not give complete alimentation to their kids, so they decided to keep open. They asked money for the municipalities, and the municipalities accepted to serve at least 1 meal a day. So there is some things happening, but still very, very slowly and very repressed. We also had, we only had one occupied place in Portugal. It was a school in a city called Oporto that was. It was an abandoned school that in a poor neighborhood of Oporto. And a group of people created a space, and it was not a movement, they didn't have a logo. They were just, they called a self-run school. And for 1 year, they did a huge work on the community, both for kids, for elder people with workshops. They had around 7 activities per day. 5 months ago, the municipality tried to, because it was becoming an example, and they becoming to grow and grow. The municipality tried to assimilate them, and they refused. They said, we are a self-run organization, we are going to keep doing it. So the municipality proposed them for they to rent the space, because they had to, at all costs, to cut these principles of solidarity, these principles of people doing themselves the projects. And they accepted to pay a symbolic rent of 30 euros per month. And they were waiting for the contract. And 2 days ago, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they were evicted by extreme force. So it was very sad, because there was a huge movement of people trying to block it, but the day after, it was finished. There was the media were not talking about it. There was nobody more in the streets. So there is still a lot of still in Portugal. There is still a long process for people to get an understanding that collectively they can do something. It's still very scattered. Very, very scattered. Another problem that is happening in the public assemblies is that some left parties are going to the public assemblies and they are trying to take over it. And that just subverts everything, and they just keep fighting between themselves, and in the end, things just get scattered. It's a very pessimistic view, but Portugal has a very different historical context as Greece. Greece had the civil war. They had always a tension between Greece and their occupation. In Portugal, we had a revolution made by the militaries. People never actually fought for something, and there was always this culture of subversion, that you are not supposed to raise your voice against your hierarchy. I believe that sooner or later it will start something, because when things get to an extreme, things happen. Again, like you said about the dangers of the fascist parties in Portugal, they are not so strong. But for example, both the monarchy party and some right-wing parties, they are growing a lot, very silently, but they are growing very fast. Meanwhile, the left keeps fighting among themselves. They are much more populistic in the way they approach people. They just give them a piece of bread or a comfort in a word, and they blame the foreigners, or they blame these, and it's very easy to gather people. So I also wonder when something will happen, and how it will happen, I have no clue yet. And if it will be for a more totalitarian kind of state, or a more solidarity kind of state, it's still a very question mark. But it will depend also in the examples of Spain, of Greece, that will create a momentum in how things can develop.
And, very briefly, you're right, absolutely right about Golden Dawn, especially the Nazi party. It seems that they're growing. Their methods is beating up people, nailing people, Some neighborhoods in the center that are really like a ghetto, they have taken full control of it. We're trying to break this. It's really difficult right now. Yeah, we have a problem. I don't know if we are now in the Weimar state level. Yeah, the left is growing. The fascists are growing, not that fast. I hope we will just have to stop them. We have to deal with that right away. I mean, we should focus on many things at the same time, but you're absolutely right, as you have mentioned, and also about the solidarity movements. One big good information that the fascists and the populist fascists that are in the parliament, they are trying to use methods that traditionally the left and the anarchists used to use. So basically, solidarity meals, you know, they give out food, they make like cooking for people, for Greeks only, of course, but they are trying to get things from our culture. We are not taking advantage of our, let's say, cultural advantages. So yeah, that's it. But you're absolutely right.
One short question.
Här har vi en Mark.
Yes, I have a question to Dimitris. I have the feeling that the movements in Greece have been very focused on political power, on punishing the government for new measures, but new austerity measures all the time. But when they actually lower the wages to the minimum, where you can barely survive anymore, why is there not that more movements that are focused on actually supplying, fulfilling the needs of people who actually can't survive on their wage? Or is there sort of a nationalism, widespread nationalism in Greece that is preventing people from actually challenging other social groups or the rich within Greece, so they focus the anger against the government instead of against them? And if, I don't know, maybe you know there are some examples of people actually are appropriating goods and are distributing them, but do you see any, what is your view on the perspective of such a direction of the movement?
Okay, about nationalism, you're absolutely right. It's always being used by the authorities as like the long hand of the power to do the dirty job. That's we know that. That's why I can also correlate your question with the previous one. Okay, there are many movements. There's a time bank. There is people that's offering to do works for each other. I didn't refer to detail to that. We didn't have that much time. Basically, for example, I will give you one good example. There's food suppliers, and there are the producers, and they are also the consumers. Between those two sides, you used to have like 5-6 different people taking money, so the price in the end would be like 10 times more. So basically what some producers started to do, they made a new network, so they sell their products, agricultural products, whatever it is, could be potatoes, oil, cheese, tomatoes, directly from the production, they give it to the consumer. Okay, this is a first solution. We're not talking now about socialism, but we are talking about people that are building, horizontal structures between them, so they try to survive and they find new means. This is the important thing in those kind of actions is that people are starting to realize what's the situation, and they're actually trying to find solutions by themselves. They're not waiting for anyone else. So I think this is the most important first step. First of all, to realize, and second of all, to start doing something. They are doing it. We are in the very first steps, but I'm also optimistic for that.
Have there been any social conflicts involved with this?
Any?
Seizure of land, or Any conflicts when this has happened, or has it been like voluntarily?
Conflicts. You mean between who?
Well, like producers or like.
Okay, the people that were losing the money were asking from the state to bring the police and don't allow. Yeah, okay, but imagine that the people that were hungry, if they were there and the police never even appeared, there's no chance. They will go away directly.